up, YouTube? Topaz Yates back for another album review, and this one is to that Usher Hard II Love. And you know, one thing that's been rather consistent with Usher throughout his entire career is that he's always dabbled in some hip-hop and such, man. I mean, going all the way back, man, he's always had some kind of hip-hop influence within his albums, man. And this album here is no different. In fact, it's a little bit more heavier than most. Looking at songs like that No Limit, which was a single which was ultimately an ode to No Limit Records. That Make You Believe, which is produced by Metro Boomin. That Rivals, which got Future on it, which that song is pretty cool. I'm gonna talk a little bit more on that a little later. To that Missing You track, which I already made a review for, which is ultimately like half hip-hop and such, man. There's a very strong hip-hop foundation within this album, and I honestly enjoy it because of that even more. But definitely some solid joints on here that I really like that Need You. What he's ultimately talking about on here is addressing that he has a whole bunch of flaws, he makes a whole lot of mistakes, he really doesn't show enough love to the women that he wants to show enough love to, and he's hoping that this woman will oversee that and ultimately still love him for who he is. Side note, I definitely did like that conversation, even though they didn't really talk about too much of nothing, but yet that's the star of the Quantico show, man. I love that show. I love her. She's a really good actor. I like that Bump track, which quite honestly may be my favorite track off this entire project, man. Not just because Usher's doing a little bit of rap on it and he's holding his own somewhat, but that production is just beautiful, and the overall concept is something that I somewhat experience a lot, man. Like, you don't know how you met these women or whatever, man, but yet you end up riding so hard that day and such. Actually, that happened to me in DC this last weekend. As I said, I really like that Rivals track, man, and I especially like what they're talking about on here. There's ultimately saying is we're not going to put any label on this somewhat relationship that we're having right now, simply because all of my relationships end up being bad and I create so many enemies because of it. So let's just enjoy what we have. Now, I know many women will rock with that, man, but there's only but so long that they'll rock with that, you dig? And finally, I really like that Tell Me track, because what he's ultimately talking about here is the connection of being completed with a woman and such, man. And we're not talking marriage, because marriage in America especially is all about business. It's not about you completing yourself as an individual with a woman. Very few people even experience such thing, man, and I know for a fact I haven't experienced such, man. But this is something that has been written in a lot of books and everything, man, that this is exactly how relationships with a man and a woman is supposed to be like. Overall, not Usher's best work by a long shot, man, but it is solid overall to the point that I recommend individual purchases, man. I overall give this joint an 8 out of 10. But this concludes today's review, and now we're going to jump into a brief instrumental from underground producer Nate on the Beat before we jump into the news and then jump into an article from downloadpass.com. So did you guys hear about Vince Staples out there in Long Beach created a music course and such out there for a YMCA that's based on everything there is that you really need to be successful, dude. Like songwriting, production, graphic design, a bunch of other things to go along with it, man. And this is one of those things that hip-hop just does not get the credit for doing, but I definitely applaud Vince Staples for giving these kids an opportunity to go ahead and do something, man. Because it's the lack of opportunity of advancement and such, that's what ultimately gets a lot of kids trapped within the crime life. But anyway, on to today's article from downloadpass.com, and today's article was about making money off of music. Because here's the lies that a lot of people in the industry is trying to tell people, man, is that you really can't sell music these days, man. Like, you need to be giving away your mixtapes and everything for free, man, but yet ultimately we've seen it with a bunch of different acts and such that you really don't have to do that. Like, look at Nipsey Hussle. Dude has been selling his free mixtapes and making a killing off of it. Like, many of the acts that were giving away free mixtapes to build up their name, so now they're all selling EPs now. They haven't given away any free mixtapes. And that's the thing, you can make money off of your music if you're creative enough and if you build your audience. Yes, you probably will have to give away your music for free in order to build that audience, but once you got that audience, then you got to figure out ways to go ahead and turn a buck out of it. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can follow me at Twitter up there, and you can go to downloadpass.com, that's down there, to read today's article.